Bob came 20 minutes later. "He's in his room," Chip's mother said. "You two watch the programme," Bob said. "Go on, sit down and watch." He smiled at them. "There's nothing to worry about," he said. "Really, it happens every day." "Still?" Chip's father said. "Of course," Bob said, "and it'll happen 100 years from now. Kids are kids." He was the youngest advisor they had ever had, 21 and barely a year out of the academy. There was nothing diffident or unsure about him though. On the contrary, he was more relaxed and confident than advisors of 50 or 55. They were pleased with him. He went to Chip's room and looked in. Chip was in bed, lying on an elbow with his head in his hands, a comic book spread open before him. "Hi, Lee," Bob said. Chip said, "Hi, Bob." Bob went in and sat down on the side of the bed. He put his telecomp on the floor between his feet, felt Chip's forehead and ruffled his hair. "What you reading?" he said. "Wood Struggle," Chip said, showing Bob the cover of his comic book. He let it drop closed on the bed and with his forefinger began tracing the wide yellow W of Woods. Bob said, "I hear somebody's been giving you some cloth about incurables." "Is that what it is?" Chip asked, not looking up from his moving finger. "That's what it is," Lee, Bob said. "It used to be true, a long, long time ago, but not anymore. Now it's just cloth." Chip was silent, retracing the W. "We didn't always know as much about medicine and chemistry as we do today," Bob said, watching him. "And until 50 years or so after the unification, members used to get sick sometimes. A very few of them, and feel that they weren't members. Some of them ran away and lived by themselves in places the family wasn't using, barren islands and mountain peaks and so forth. And they took off their bracelets?" "I suppose they did," Bob said. "Bracelets wouldn't have been much use to them in places like that, would they, with no scanners to put them to? Jesus said they did something called fighting." Bob looked away and then back again. "Acting aggressively is a nicer way of putting it," he said. "Yes, they did that." Chip looked up at him. "But they're dead now," he said. "Yes, all dead," Bob said. "Every last one of them." He smoothed Chip's hair. "It was a long, long time ago," he said. "Nobody gets that way today." Chip said, "We know more about medicine and chemistry today. Treatments work." "Right you are," Bob said. "And don't forget, there were 5 separate computers in those days. Once one of those sick members had left his home continent, he was completely unconnected. My grandfather helped build Unicomp." "I know he did, Lee. So next time anyone tells you about the incurables, you remember 2 things. 1, treatments are much more effective today than they were a long time ago. And 2, we've got Unicomp looking out for us everywhere on Earth. Okay?" "Okay," Chip said and smiled. "Let's see what it says about you," Bob said, picking up his telecomp and opening it on his knees. Chip sat up and moved close, pushing his pyjama sleeve clear of his bracelet. "Do you think I'll get an extra treatment?" he asked. "If you need one," Bob said. "Do you want to turn it on?" "Me?" Chip said. "May I?" "Sure," Bob said. Chip put his thumb and forefinger cautiously to the telecomp's on-off switch. He clicked it over and small lights came on. Blue, amber, amber. He smiled at them. Bob, watching him, smiled and said, "Touch." Chip touched his bracelet to the scanner plate and the blue light beside it turned red. Bob tapped the input keys. Chip watched his quickly moving fingers. Bob kept tapping and then pressed the answer button. A line of green symbols glowed on the screen, and then a second line beneath the first. Bob studied the symbols. Chip watched him. Bob looked at Chip from the corner of his eyes, smiling. "Tomorrow at 12:25, he said. "Good," Chip said. "Thank you." "Thank you, Lee," Bob said, switching off the telecomp and closing its cover. "Who told you about the incurables?" he asked. "Jesus who?" "DV33 something," Chip said. "He lives on 24th floor." Bob snapped the telecomp's catches. "He's probably as worried as you were," he said. "Can he have an extra treatment too?" "If he needs one. I'll alert his advisor. Now to sleep, brother. You've got school tomorrow." Bob took Chip's comic book and put it on the night table. Chip lay down and snuggled smilingly into his pillow, and Bob stood up, tapped off the lamp, ruffled Chip's hair again and bent and kissed the back of his head. "See you Friday," Chip said. "Right," Bob said. "Good night." "Night, Bob." Chip's parents stood up anxiously when Bob came into the living room. "He's fine," Bob said. "Practically asleep already. He's getting extra treatment during his lunch hour tomorrow, probably a bit of a tranquilizer." "Oh, what a relief," Chip's mother said, and his father said, "Thanks, Bob." "Thank you, Lee," Bob said. He went to the phone. "I want to get some help to the other boy," he said, "the one who told him," and touched his bracelet to the phone's plate.